Hello and welcome everybody to this XTB live news. My name is Walid Koudmani, market analyst for XTB, and in this video we're going to be talking about the main events happening in the markets this morning, what we can expect from the US session, what to keep an eye on the economic calendar point of view, and we're going to take a look at the charts to see some of the key moves and key levels to keep an eye on. So let's start with a recap of what happened yesterday. As I mentioned, we've had the earnings season in the US happening this whole time, so we've had a few weeks of it, with the first week being dedicated particularly to banks, financial institutions. Last week was a bit more diversified, and this week we had a lot of mega cap companies. Yesterday we had Twitter and Amazon, both of them announcing their earnings, and both of them exceeding expectations slightly. Amazon reported a 44% year-on-year jump in Q1 revenue, so clear indication that the pandemic has helped as well, the Amazon and Twitter, as you would expect, of course. This morning started with a lot of data from Europe in particular. We had the French CPI, Spain GDP, German GDP, Polish CPI, Eurozone CPI, and Eurozone GDP. So all these were released this morning. Some were better than expected. Most were better than expected. A few were slightly worse than expected, with one of them being the German GDP report. So Germany has been one of the countries that has suffered a lot because of the vaccination, lack in vaccination, that is, and even going as far as locking down several times throughout. We also received the US data pack for March at 1:30, which included, of course, PCE inflation, personal spending, and personal income. These are all measures that are very important to keep an eye on because they give us an indication of the health of the economy on the consumer side. And we also had the Canadian monthly GDP for February, so that's also something for perhaps CAD traders to keep an eye on. What we're waiting for is the University of Michigan Consumer Sentiment, which is an index that is quite important to follow, as again, like the personal spending and personal income, gives us an idea of the situation on the consumer end. On the earnings side, so I mentioned this week has been a very important one for mega cap companies and a lot of large companies, McDonald's and Starbucks. Today we have Chevron, ExxonMobil, Phillips 66, and Clorox. Clorox, many of you may know. Exxon and Chevron are oil companies. And so for any oil traders or for anybody really interested in the stock market or their shares, today was a very important day, as is always with these earnings seasons. If we go and move on to the charts, take a look at some of the major moves. We're going to take a look at and see that there's a interesting performance on the indices today. If I draw these lines, as you can see, maybe potential supports and resistances, we can see that the DAX obviously dropped yesterday quite significantly, around 1.65%, dropping to 15,094 points, but then managing to rebound and with a few pullbacks, but still moving upwards at the moment, testing this area and moving above both the 8 and 21 EMAs, so blue and yellow lines, this other area. But what's interesting is if we look where it actually bounced off of, if we scroll back, we'll see this area has been tested in the past, led to this upward move into this range. And now the price bounced off of it again and is back into the previous range. So these are some of the things that are worth keeping an eye on. On the upside, on the top side, of course, we are still below the 50 SMA, so the purple line, the 15,300 level, which you can see has a lot of price reactions, and then the recent highs around 15,346. If we were to break through those, you can see that we have a few more highs, but then we just go back up to the all-time high, which was reached at 15,526 points. The UK index, though, also slightly positive performance. You can see after a drop, similar performance to the DAX. So trading around 6,950 points after this massive drop that we saw, drop it to 6,800. If we go on, if you want to take a look at US indices, though, that's a slightly different performance, which I was going to talk about. So you can see US indices actually continuing the drop from yesterday, because yesterday they had a drop like the DAX, but then managed to recover and then pulling back with the US 500, now testing the area of 4,175. You can see a lot of price reactions, a lot of tests. This area held many times and then acted as a resistance here as well a few times in the past. So this is a very important area, plus a psychological level. These round numbers, 4,175, 4,200, can kind of be important sometimes to keep an eye on as well. So on the support end, this, as you can see, has acted as a support in the past, and it remains to be seen if we'll be able to act as it again but we have a lot of red candles showing here on this side, while here obviously green candles leading. If we want to take a look at the Nasdaq, the US 100, slightly worse performance even, but again testing a previous area, not as strong as the other area that we saw, but it did act as a resistance. So you can see 13,835 after dropping quite significantly from the high of 14,050, about 1.6%, breaking through all the moving averages and now testing this area. If we go and look at commodities, we can see yesterday, very important move on gold happening. After this slight pullback, you can see that really didn't basically even break through this range. We saw this sudden move from 1780 right down to 1755, 1756, I would say 1755, which is a very interesting level because we've talked about it in the past in these videos, and I've talked about how important this was in the past, and I'll show you why. You can see this previous range when obviously gold had a very negative performance for quite some time, so you can see weeks trading in this range. This area, actually, the 1755, was the top of the range that the price failed to break through and then pulled back all the way down to the original low of 1678. Tested again, and on the third test up, actually was able to break through with this really big candle. And so the interesting thing is that when the price pulled back so suddenly yesterday, it actually just didn't land here on this previous, let's say, bottom of the range. It actually landed right on the previous resistance of the range from last month. So interesting level, but obviously the price managed to rebound very quickly, testing the Ichimoku cloud, but not being able to break through it. So it still hovers around 1770, 1775, and so it's interesting, but it's not clear if it's going to continue to go up, obviously, or go down. But it definitely didn't continue going down after breaking through this previous support. Silver, we can see a little bit more positive at the moment. Again, trying to break through the Ichimoku cloud, trading at $26, 150. And if we take a look at Bitcoin very quick, see also Bitcoin, cryptos moving up after this massive drop we saw just recently. Oil, on the other hand, it's a negative day for oil. So we saw after oil managed to reach what seemed, you can see this upward move extending from the 23rd at $63.92, extending, and I'll show you how big it is. About almost 7%, a bit over 7%. So 7% upward move, and then a pullback at the moment of around almost 3%, trading at the moment 66.60, and testing the Ichimoku cloud, still not breaking through it yet. But this area also, you can see, acted as a support in the past, as a price reaction area, support here. So this is not just any area. As you can see here, it actually acted as a support in the past. And it coincides with the Ichimoku cloud, so it's an important area to keep an eye on. Meanwhile, if we look at WTI, the situation is quite similar, but the price on the H1 chart actually managed to break below the Ichimoku cloud and is now testing this purple line, which is the 100 SMA. And after below it, we have the 200 SMA, which is the yellow line. But if we draw, for example, a line here, we can see somewhat of a price reaction area. If we drop it a little bit further, even to here, we can see this area was a support here in the past and then acted as a support here as well. So there's a lot of price movements happening at the moment on the oil market. You can see quite a significant drop if we go and pull it down from the top, also around 3%. So like oil, and these are both markets that were moving upwards for quite some time, let's say a few days, and now seem to be reversing. If we go and take a look at the currencies, we'll see that on the market analysis section of the platform, we'll see that the US dollar is clearly the best performing currency today, or one of the best performing currencies, definitely the major. Euro is positive, if not mixed. The pound is actually one of the worst majors, performing negatively against every other major currency. The Swiss franc is slightly mixed. New Zealand dollar more negative. Yen, CAD, and dollar, Australian dollar are all slightly positive. If we go and take a look at the pairs, we can see that you can see this very significant downward move on the GBP USD cable pair. You can see from the top reached the 139.7, dropping around 0.7, 0.75% after trading in this range. And this is also due, as you can see, both to a weakness of the pound itself and to a strength of the dollar which I'll show you on the next chart, has been actually moving upwards. So this in fact is euro dollar with the USD index overlaid, as I always do on these videos. You'll see that euro dollar also dropping, not as significantly as the pound, because the pound is actually doing worse, but still dropping below these moving averages, still dropping below the key 121 level, which is around here. That was actually overtaken around a few days ago here. So with this a big upward candle, and then led to a high of 121.5, so important level also. And then we saw this pullback. At the moment, the price managed to rebound off of 128, and you can see the why, because there's a lot of price reactions here. There's it acted as support in the past. So if it can continue to go up, or if it does remain to be seen if it will pull back, but we can see here that the dollar is slowing down slightly. So you can see this upward move of the dollar coinciding a little bit with this downward move of the euro dollar. And now with this sideward or sideways movement of the dollar at the moment, even slightly pulling back, you can see this green candle at the moment forming on euro dollar. And so that's all for today. Thank you very much for watching. For those of you who missed yesterday's investing day, you can check it out on our YouTube. We had 3 excellent speakers who shared their knowledge with us: Chris Laurie, Chris Capri, and Kim Watson. So feel free to go and watch that video on the YouTube channel. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good weekend and good luck with your trading.